Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something, well, pretty big.
Huge, even.
You could say that. We're talking about the second coming of Christ,
A topic that's fascinated people for centuries.
to say the least.
Yeah.
And we've got an episode from the Kingdom SoulFuel podcast. They've got a very Christian take on it, which is what we'll dig into.
Right, and it's discussing how they present it, not just the what, but the how-to,
Exactly. The signs, the prep work, the whole deal.
But what's also interesting is to see how their view compares to, well, other views, even within Christianity.
Good point. It's not a monolithic thing, is it?
Huh.
And for our listeners, wherever they stand, it makes you think, what would this mean practically in the world?
Exactly, lots to unpack there.
For sure. So Kingdom SoulFuel, they really hit on John 14.3, that promise of Jesus coming back for believers.
Right, but their spin on it, it's not just about Judgment Day, fire and brimstone.
No, it's more like, well, restoration is how they put it.
God's plan coming to, I guess you could say, completion?
And for believers, that idea of being united with Christ, finding ultimate peace, it's a powerful image.
Definitely. And you see that strain of thought in a lot of Christian traditions, this focus on the positive aspects of the second coming.
Hopeful, yeah. But they're not shying away from the whole signs of the times thing.
No, they dive right into Matthew 24, Luke 21, all that.
Laying out 4 big signs, starting with deception, false prophets running around.
And they use Matthew 24.4 to 5 specifically, that warning about people claiming to be the Messiah but leading people astray.
Which, I mean, you think about it, that idea pops up a lot in lots of belief systems.
Oh, absolutely. This fear of being misled, especially during uncertain times, it's pretty universal.
It makes you wonder, in our world today, what would a false prophet even look like? Would it be some charismatic leader, an influencer on, like, social media?
It's a question Kingdom SoulFuel actually poses to their listeners.
Oh, really? So they're getting people thinking?
Yeah, they hint at modern examples, like false teachings, even cults, but they keep it broad.
Probably smart. Keeps people engaged without getting too, I don't know.
Controversial, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. So sign number 2, wars and rumors of wars.
Straight from Matthew 24.6.
And here's where it gets kind of interesting. They talk about using visuals, like newspaper clippings, footage of war zones. In the podcast...
Which in an audio format is a choice.
Right. It's like, how effective can that really be? But I guess they're going for that immersive.
Trying to really drive home the point.
But they also say, even though this sign can be scary, believers shouldn't freak out.
It's more like, don't worry, this is all part of the plan, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Which leads us to sign number 3, natural disasters.
Luke 21.11 is the go-to here.
Earthquakes, famines, the whole 9 yards.
And again, they really lay on the descriptions almost like they're painting a picture with words.
You know, that whole natural disasters is a sign of the end thing. It's not just a Christian thing.
Oh, totally not. It's like this primal fear, right? This idea that nature's going to go haywire.
The world's ending, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And Kingdom SoulFuel, they tap into that to underline that urgency of, like, turning to faith.
Like, the world's fragile, so you better get right with God.
Pretty much. Okay, so we've got deception, wars, natural disasters. What's the final sign?
This one might throw some people off. They say it's the spread of the gospel.
As in more people becoming Christian.
Exactly. Which, on the surface, seems a little different from the doom and gloom of the other signs.
Yeah, they're framing it as a good thing, a sign that things are moving towards this, well, climax.
They specifically cite Matthew 24.14, that bit about the gospel being preached to all nations.
And again, with the visuals, they describe missionaries, online sermons, Bibles being translated, all that.
Emphasizing how far the message has gone, especially now with the internet and everything.
It's fascinating how they zero in on Christianity, though, right? Like, other religions exist and are growing, too.
That's true. It's like they're saying this is the one true path to salvation.
Yeah, and while it makes sense within their worldview, it does raise some questions about, well, inclusivity,
For sure. But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the signs, but Kingdom SoulFuel doesn't stop there.
Oh, no, they go full on into prep mode.
Like, what do you actually do to get ready for the second coming?
And they break it down into 3 steps.
3 steps. All right, lay it on me.
Step 1, they say, is to live a holy life.
The classic walk the walk.
Exactly. They even use 2 Peter 3.11, which talks about, like, living a holy and godly life while you wait for, the end.
So it's not just about saying you believe, it's about embodying it.
They emphasize this constant self-reflection, checking in with your relationship with Christ.
Repentance, forgiveness, all that.
Yep. striving to live in a way that aligns with God's word.
Okay, so step 1 is all about inner work. What about step 2? How else do you get ready?
This one's about staying alert, being watchful and prayerful. It's like, don't get complacent. The big day could be any minute now.
Stay sharp, basically.
Exactly. And they pull from Luke 21:36, which talks about being always on the watch and pray.
Prayer. Yeah, that's a big one for a lot of faiths, not just Christianity.
Totally. It's about connecting with something bigger than yourself, finding guidance.
Kingdom SoulFuel. They frame it as aligning yourself with God's will.
Staying spiritually attuned, ready for whatever's coming.
So we've got holy living, watchful prayer. What's the third step in their prep plan?
Step 3 is all about action. They're like, go out and share the gospel.
Spreading the word, huh? Bringing more people into the faith.
Precisely. They even use the Great Commission, Matthew 28:19, where Jesus tells his disciples to go and make disciples of all nations.
So it's not enough to just be ready yourself. You got to help others get ready too.
Right. They even challenge listeners to think about, like, who in their lives needs to hear this message.
But how does that tie into preparing for the second coming? It seems like more of a, I don't know, an ongoing thing.
Well, they frame it as being absolutely crucial, like there's an urgency to it, got to spread the word before it's, too late.
Interesting. It's kind of like save yourself and then save others.
Yeah, and that raises a question, right? Does that resonate with people? Or does it add more pressure?
Good point. It's a fine line they're walking there.
Hmm.
But Kingdom SoulFuel doesn't just leave you with this to-do list. They actually have a pretty clear conclusion to their episode.
Right. They try to tie it all together, give it some meaning.
So what's their final takeaway? What are they leaving their listeners with?
They start by asking these really direct questions like, are you ready for his return? And have you given your life fully to Christ?
Wow, getting right to the heart of it.
Yeah, they're making people really think about where they stand spiritually.
And then for those who haven't accepted Jesus, they actually offer a prayer of salvation.
Yeah, that's pretty common in evangelical traditions.
It's that direct call to conversion.
They guide the listeners through this prayer where they, admit their sins, say they believe in Jesus, ask for forgiveness.
Interesting how that contrasts with some other Christian groups who might take a less intense approach to conversion.
Yeah, there are definitely different styles out there. But so after the prayer, what happens? Do they just end there?
Not quite. They actually go on to offer congratulations to anyone who might have prayed along.
Like, welcome to the family.
And they give advice, like find a Bible-based church, share the gospel with at least 2 other people.
It's almost like a starter kit for new believers.
Yeah, it's a very structured approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very step by step.
Definitely. It's not just, here's an idea. It's, here's exactly what to do.
Which for some people might feel a little too, prescriptive.
Yeah, some people might prefer a more, personalized path.
It's all about finding what works for you, I guess. But Kingdom SoulFuel, they're not messing around. They cover a lot in this episode. They've got the theological background, the signs, the prep work, the whole shebang.
They're thorough.
So how do they bring it all home? What's their final message?
They end on a pretty strong note. They use Matthew 24:44, the part about being ready because you never know when the Son of Man is coming.
It's that reminder. Stay vigilant, be prepared.
The second coming could be any minute now.
It's definitely a thought-provoking way to end things. They've mixed comfort and warning, hope and urgency. It's a lot to process.
And that's why these deep dives are so cool, right? We get to explore these belief systems, see how people make sense of these big world-changing events.
Absolutely. So before we move on, what were your first impressions of Kingdom SoulFuel's approach? Anything that surprised you?
I mean, their use of visuals, that was a bold move, right? For an audio-only format.
Definitely unique.
I think it shows they're really trying to, make an impact, connect with a modern audience.
Yeah, they're bringing these ancient prophecies into the 21st century.
And I thought it was interesting how they framed the spread of the gospel as this positive sign.
It's a hopeful message in a world that can feel pretty bleak sometimes.
Yeah, it's like a counter-narrative to all the doom and gloom.
But you also have to consider, the spread of any belief system, it's not always seen as a good thing by everyone.
Right, it can create division, conflict.
It's a reminder that perspectives are diverse, even when we're talking about something like religious growth.
Good point. Another thing that struck me was how Kingdom SoulFuel emphasized personal responsibility. It's not just about waiting around for this big event. It's about actively living your faith.
Yeah, making a difference in the world, that kind of thing.
They're presenting the second coming as this opportunity for growth, for action.
But how does their take on the second coming compare to other views within Christianity?
That's a great question. While they agree on the basics, like Jesus coming back, the signs, there are some differences.
Oh, quite.
For instance, their focus on the spread of the gospel as a sign, not every denomination would put as much weight on that.
Some might focus more on the catastrophic signs, like wars and natural disasters.
Right, seeing those as more literal indicators of the end.
So even within the same faith, there's a range of interpretations.
Absolutely. And those interpretations can impact how people prepare, how they live their lives.
It makes me think about how those different views translate into action. Do some groups focus more on evangelizing, while others prioritize helping the poor or fighting for justice?
That's worth exploring for sure. It shows how beliefs shape not just our understanding of the world, but also our actions.
Kingdom SoulFuel has definitely given us a lot to chew on. Their message, while Christian, it touches on some universal stuff.
Like hope, responsibility, living according to your values.
And those are things everyone can think about, regardless of their beliefs.
Exactly. That's what's so cool about these deep dives. We find these nuggets of wisdom that go beyond specific doctrines.
It's like finding common ground, even in the midst of different worldviews.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to move into the final part of our deep dive.
Part 3. We've covered the signs, the preparation, the conclusion. It's time to put it all together.
And consider what Kingdom SoulFuel's perspective on the second coming means, not just for them, but for all of us.
So here we are, wrapping up our deep dive into Kingdom SoulFuel's take on the second coming. And I gotta say, it's fascinating how they blend like those ancient prophecies with, well, the worries we have today.
It's smart, right? They tap into this age-old fascination with the end of the world, but they also give people a way to, like, deal with it, with all the uncertainty.
It's not just an explanation, it's a how-to guide almost.
Exactly. And even if you take out the specifically Christian stuff, there are these universal themes that I think really resonate.
Like what?
Well, the idea of being prepared, right?
Yeah.
Living a life that reflects your values and recognizing that the world, well, it's got both good and bad in store.
Those are messages that go way beyond any one religion or belief system.
Totally. And as we wrap up, I think it's worth asking ourselves, what sticks with us from Kingdom SoulFuel? Even if we don't agree with everything they say, what can we take away?
It's about finding those nuggets of truth, the stuff that speaks to, well, to something deeper.
Maybe it's a renewed appreciation for faith, or maybe it's that push to, like, get out there and make a difference in your community.
Or even just a reminder to, live with purpose, be intentional.
But whatever it is, that's the power of these deep dives,
Exactly.
right? We're not just sitting back listening.
We're engaging, we're questioning, we're coming out of it with hopefully a better understanding of, well, of everything.
Of the world, of ourselves, of how people see things.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh.
And on that note, I think it's time to close the book on this exploration of Kingdom SoulFuel and their unique perspective on the second coming.
But remember, the learning doesn't stop here. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep into all the fascinating ideas out there.
Stay curious, everyone.